So this, I think the last video cut off, so we'll start this one over. If the secant of theta is root 3 and the tangent is less than 0, find the exact values of the remaining trig ratios. So again, we're still thinking about our all students take calculus. And then let's figure out what quadrant we're in. So if I know the tangent is less than 0, that means the tangent has to be negative because that's less than 0. We haven't talked about the tangent being 0 yet. We will, but not now. So that means it's not here and it's not here because that's where the tangent is positive. And so we're torn between two. So let's look at our other one. I know that the secant of theta is equal to root 3 over 2, or just root 3, which means that the secant of theta is a positive number. Think about what secant is the reciprocal of. Since secant is the reciprocal of cosine, that means that this must be my cosine, which means that the cosine would also be positive, which then means that we're not in the second quadrant, we are in the fourth. So let's draw that. And again, your picture does not have to be perfect, but your terminal side is going to be here. You're going to make your right triangle with the positive x-axis. So my cosine is 1 over root 3, which means the hypotenuse is root 3. And then the opposite side, not the opposite side, the adjacent side, is 1. And so we can do Pythagorean theorem to figure out the third side. 1 squared plus b squared equals root 3 squared. So that's 3, and that's 1, and that's still b squared. Move the 1 over, so you get b squared equals 2. So that means our missing side, our third side, is the square root of 2. And looking at your picture, this square root of 2, it would be the y value of the point, which means that this has to be negative. So now we can find our sine, cosine, and tangent. So the sine is negative root 2 over root 3. And then the cosine is, well, we already found that one, 1 over root 3, positive. And then the tangent is also going to end up being negative root 2 over 1. Let's go ahead and be good math students and rationalize our denominator. Let's write this because we don't need it anymore. So this is negative root 6 over 3. This one is going to be root 3 over 3. And then this one is good. And we can also find the secant, the cosecant, and the cotangent. So again, I usually flip this fraction. It's still going to be negative root 3 over root 2 this time. This one is going to just be root 3, which we already knew that. And then 1 over root 2. Make sure that you keep this cotangent negative because the tangent was negative. And then this one will end up being root 6 over 2. And this one is also negative. Let's do one more just for good practice. So if I know the sine is 5 over 7, and I know that the cotangent is less than 0, find the exact value of the remaining trig ratio. So let's process of eliminate this. And let's figure out where we should be. So first, the sine is 5 over 7. The sine is positive. That's all I really care about right now, is that the sine is positive. So it's not here, and it's not here, because the sine is positive in quadrants 2 and 1. And then the cotangent is less than 0. Well, if the cotangent is less than 0, then the tangent will also be less than 0, Well, if everything is positive in the first quadrant and I want this to be less than 0, that means that it's negative, which means that that is out as well. This is the one I want. This particular trig function, or this particular triangle, this particular angle ends up being in the second quadrant. And I know that my sine is 5 over 7, so my opposite is 5, and my hypotenuse is 7. And just keeping in mind your quadrants, this is going to be a negative number, whatever it is. So let's do Pythagorean theorem. 5 squared plus b squared equals 7 squared. So we have 25 plus b squared equals 49. And then 49 minus 25 is 24. And so we can square root 24. We can also rationalize this or reduce the radical, which ends up being 2 root 6. So this is negative 2 root 6. Now I have all the information I need to do my sine, cosine, and tangent. And then in turn, my cosecant, secant, and cotangent. I just wrote down secant. So, sine we already knew, but again, I get in the habit of just writing things down. Cosine is negative 2 root 6 over 7, and then tangent is 5 over negative 2 root 6. And then we'll rationalize. So I have 5 root 6 over 2 times 6, so that's 12. And you can put the negative wherever you want. Typically, we usually write it in the front of the fraction, or we write it up at the top, but it's not wrong if you keep it in the bottom. And then the secant, flip that fraction, so we have 7 over negative 2 root 6. And then the tangent, again, flip the one before you rationalize, it'll save you some energy. Your cotangent will be negative 2 root 6 over 5. So we have 7 root 6 over 12, and that is going to be a negative. So, this process, although maybe a little confusing, is actually straightforward as long as you can figure out what quadrant you're lying in. All right? So spend the rest of the time in class today working on that worksheet, and come in tomorrow with questions.